Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Howe Avenue Theater and this evening's performance of Echoes in the Heart. I'm Tim Cahill, the producer, and there are a couple of housekeeping matters that need to be addressed first. The restrooms are down the hall and they're properly marked. The exits are through the doors you came in through. And I'd ask that you turn off all cell phones and related items. If they go on during the performance, it's an annoyance to the audience, but it also can throw off the actors. I'm excited about this evening because tonight is Rotary Night. I'm a Rotarian, and there are a number of Rotarians here in the audience. And our clubs and the district have come up with a goal of trying to end human trafficking. Human trafficking is a euphemism for one of the ugliest words in the English language: slavery. Slavery. The buying and selling of young women and boys, the trading of them as if they were chattel by those who would use them for their own pleasure and greed. It's abhorrent. All the proceeds, the net proceeds from the ticket sales and everything that goes into the donation glass over there will go to that end of trying to help solve human trafficking. Now this evening, you're going to see a play about a young couple that were desperately trying to escape from Nazi Germany in the late 1930s. And this is an especially appropriate night because tonight is the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the breaking of glass. I don't think I have to tell you about the hatred and the venom that the Nazis had against the Jews and the consequences of so many millions of people. This play is the true story of this couple and their infant daughter getting out of Germany through the aid of their very distant American cousins, people they never knew and didn't know them, but who, through their compassion and their desire and their courage, did everything they could to step up and help people that needed it so badly. You know, after World War II, when the German population was confronted with the death houses of Auschwitz and Treblinka and others, many of them lowered their eyes and said under their breaths, "We didn't know, we didn't know." They had turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to that which was before them. And I sometimes wonder whether our children or grandchildren or maybe even great-grandchildren will sometimes ask us what we did to stop human trafficking, the enslavement of children and young women and boys. I don't think that we, you and I, as people of conscience, can turn a blind eye and a deaf ear. And so I hope you will join me and the other Rotarians here in doing what you can to donate to this cause. And if you have the means and the desire to write a check, please write it out in the name of the district, which is on the reverse side of your ticket. Thank you for your attention, and I know you're going to enjoy the play. Good evening.
Of freedom, the journey seems so long, the dream still leads us onward, following its song. We are your time, we are your poor, all yearning to breathe free. We come from near and distant shores, the huddled masses at your door, just searching for the chance to know the dream that brought you long ago, all tempest-tossed across the sea, is calling now to me.
In jeder Stunde, an jedem Tag, nur zu denken an Deutschland, an Volk und an Reich, an unsere deutsche Nation. Unser deutsches Volk siegt ein! Sieg ein! Sieg ein! Sieg ein! Sieg ein!
Kristallnacht, referred to as the Night of Broken Glass, took place on the evening of November 9th, 1938, when the Nazis raided the Jewish communities in Berlin. It was a night of mob violence, destruction, and terror. And this was hardly the first sign that my parents needed to flee Germany. You see, I was only 2 at the time, and I really don't recall those events, nor the humiliations and restrictions that they suffered. However, at the time of my mother's death, I found their story in letters, stored away in shoeboxes, cabinets, and in this trunk. And now that I have read them, I know so much more. How they must have struggled to write every letter in English, and they made copies of every one, and all the letters they received from their relatives they kept. Their words tell the real story. Even though the Nazis censored these letters, and in between the lines lies the true horror of their experience. Now, what these letters couldn't tell you was about the anti-Semitic violence that took place 6 years before Kristallnacht in 1932, before Hitler even came into power. And that evil, evil tide soon became an enormous flood. And what these letters didn't tell you was how my parents were deprived of their citizenship in the very country they were born in, and how friends and families had one profession after another close to them. Intermarriage was forbidden, and public places were segregated. And in 1938, my father was forced to sell his business for pennies. They even took his car away. He was no longer allowed to hire a Gentile, nor could a Gentile hire him. Now, I know that my mother and father loved to go to the theater and concerts, and they were no longer allowed to attend. They couldn't even sit on a park bench unless it was marked Juden. So the life that they knew in Berlin, a life that was filled with friends, family, work, play, and love and joy, was clearly coming to an end.
We must. For us and for the child.
There is still hope. The people will see Hitler is a lunatic and a fool.
A lunatic, yes, but hardly a fool. The people cheer him for seizing Austria. The Austrians cheer him. They are the fools.
This is our home. For generations, my father, my grandfather, served this country in uniform. You grew up in Berlin.
You know Mutti and Papa have already gotten permission to leave the country. So has Papa Wolf. If we went, so would they.
My father would never leave with my mother in an institution. And besides, like us, they can't find sponsors for immigrating anywhere. This is our home. All our lives are here. This is our land.
Is it? And will it be our daughter's land? What kind of life will she find here? And why do we argue? We've already begun to pack.
Where would you have us go? Away from the arms of family, and to what?
My cousins in America.
Yes, I have read their letters. There is much trouble in America. People are out of work. They're angry at immigrants. They're angry at Jews. Even if we were to somehow get there, how would we survive?
Perhaps with help from the cousins.
Who don't even know us, who struggle to survive, even the ones with the government.
Paul Lewinson and his wife Jean, they are my cousins.
Distant cousins, and likely to remain so, who urge us not to come to the United States, but instead to go to where? North Africa or South America? Some welcome that one.
It's gotta be better than here.
Gestapo! Remain exactly where you are. Do not move. Two, 4, 5, 6,000 Reichsmarks. What is this?
It's-
Silence, Jew! I don't want to hear your lies. The woman will explain tomorrow at my office why you have more money than what is allowed for Jews to possess. Tomorrow, my office, or we will come and get you.
It was our emergency money,
Our money to leave the country.
and they took it all.
Yes, all of it.
And they demand an explanation. What can we say? What can we do?
You mean what can I say? What can I do? I'm the one.
I know. I don't like the way he looked at you. What will we do?
I will have to think of something.
Ah, Fräulein, you are here. And without the man.
My husband.
Of course. My apologies, Frau Grunwald. So, you have an explanation for the unauthorized amount of money found in your possession? No doubt it was your husband's fault, correct?
No. The money is mine, not his.
Really?
Yes, and you've put me in a most embarrassing situation.
And what is that?
That was money I was saving without his knowledge.
For what reason?
Travel.
Travel? To where would you travel and for what purpose?
For a trip. To Paris. To be with my lover.
I should have known. Such a lovely Fräulein, pardon me, Frau, would not settle for a shrimp like your husband. But still, this is highly illegal. More money than what is permitted for Jews to possess. It is a criminal offense. I must consider this carefully. So you know, the law does not permit lovely young women for such a romantic excitement. But still, who am I to discourage you? Here. 5,000 Reichsmarks should buy you plenty of recreation in Paris, and I shall keep 1,000 as a souvenir to remember you by. And when you come back, my lovely new friend, you will remember me next time you need some more excitement. Perhaps, if you have a few minutes. little gratitude.
I must get back. I left my child at home.
Unfortunate. But still, you know where to find me. Do not make me regret my generosity and my romantic nature. Have a very successful trip to Paris. Auf Wiedersehen.
National Archives, Paul Lewinson. Oh, hi, dear. Yes. I got a receipt back from the American consulate in Berlin, so I know they got the documents we sent. But I'm not very confident it's going to do the Grunwalds much good. Well, hey, you hear the same things at your office that we hear about the folks at the State Department. I mean, some of those people could teach Hitler about anti-Semitism. They're already referring to the Jewish refugees from Germany as undesirable aliens. I know. I know the British talk the same way. Now, I keep saying alien, yeah, but undesirable to who? Us or Hitler? It doesn't do any good. The roadblocks are there, and I'm afraid they're set in concrete. Yeah, well, I'll write them again. But I'm having a hard time not sounding discouraging. I know. I know, I'll try. I mean, they are our cousins, second or third or whatever. And the newspaper reports from there are horrifying. But it's not easy. The welcome mat's been officially put in long-term storage. Yeah. Yes, Jean, I'll be careful what I write. Yes, I know. Hey, you too. Bye-bye. My dear cousins, as your letter arrived, our newspapers were filled with stories which greatly alarm us. We can understand your disappointment at the long routine delay of which you have been advised. May I make some suggestions that may give you a temporary solution? Perhaps you can secure a visitor's visa for some other country than the U.S. You could then await your regular turn for immigration into the U.S. in some more suitable place than your present residence, perhaps.
More suitable place than your present residence. More suitable.
He means safer than here.
He means safer than here, but not there.
Well, what else does he suggest?
Perhaps you can go as an immigrant to some other country entirely than the U.S., where so long a delay might not be necessary.
Does he have suggestions?
Palestine, Russia, South America. In other words, anywhere but America.
Let me see that. Yes, listen. We still hope to see you and the child here.
Or if not here, to learn of your arrival in some other place where so long a delay might not be necessary. In other words,
you must write him and tell him his help and his advice are welcome. He's the only one actively trying to get us out of Germany before that becomes impossible.
As usual, you're right. A friend is a friend, and a cousin is a cousin. Let's hope the possible is still possible. I shall fill out that information paper from the Swiss embassy. And I shall write to Cousin Paul and let him know what I'm doing.
And be nice.
We thank you with all my heart for the interest you take in our affairs and for the readiness to help us. What about Switzerland?
The newspaper.
Our Jewish newspaper was telling us about collective camps to be installed in the U.S., where immigrants from Germany will be gathered until their number is called up. Do you know anything about this? It's urgent to get out of this country.
If Switzerland seems to you a desirable place, by all means, put yourselves in a position to go there. Before going, however, be sure to find out what the necessary steps are if you plan eventually to continue from there to this country. you might wish to inquire at the Cuban legation in Berlin. I've heard that this is one of the easiest places to get to. It might especially seem to you if in Switzerland you are barred from seeking employment, while in Cuba you were not. I've heard nothing about collective camps to be established here in which prospective immigrants are to wait their turn for admission.
Mr. Max Grunwald, Berlin, regarding your request for an entry permit, we regret to inform you we cannot pursue the matter. Sincerely, Swiss Legation.
I'll write them the news. My dear cousin, we thank you very much for your kind letter. Corresponded with our female cousin in London, who begged her to do all to the limit of her power to get a visitor's visa for England. The difficulties are very great. She is a foreigner herself and has no money to meet the guarantees for us. The way via Cuba eventually would be quite right, but there it is necessary to meet the security of $900 for each person, and half for the child. Many people now are going by way of Cuba. Naturally, they have relations or friends abroad being well off to meet the required guarantees. We are so unhappy here and only thinking, how are we able to get out of this country? Meanwhile, the Swiss embassy has refused the permit.
I shall try to lay before you all the facts I have on each of the alternatives. The final decision is in your hands, and I do not wish you to have the impression that I am seeking to influence you in any way. Cuba. Visitors' visas run 6 months and can be renewed once. After that, you must leave. As you would have no place to go, this is no use to you unless you have reason to believe that you could enter this country permanently within a year. I believe this is not the case. Further, as a visitor, you are held not to seek employment or engage in business. I think then, Cuba is out of the question for you.
Well, good. I would hate the tropical climate. What does he say about England?
Says it's much the same. Huge financial guarantees required for the entire length of our stay. We're not allowed to take jobs or go into business. We could enjoy your cool climate until we starve to death.
What are his other alternatives?
Brace yourself. You're not going to like this one. Trinidad, more tropics.
In some ways, Trinidad seems to be the most practical alternative. An unrestricted visa of indefinite length and requiring no pledge not to take employment or engage in business. Low immigration deposit. However, passages from Amsterdam are already booked for the next 6 months through June of 1939. But perhaps you could get a transit visa to Holland and live there until the next available passage. The only reason for not going ahead with this plan immediately is that you do not wish to go to Trinidad.
Again with the tropics. It really makes me shudder. Is that his final alternative?
No, but he certainly feels it's his best one.
Well, what else is there?
There's only one more. It seems to be an afterthought.
I'm able to put this alternative before you in a purely accidental way. I happened in New York to meet a member of my wife's family who has certain personal connections in the Philippines. The end result of which may be a statement that will practically assure you of a favorable response to a request for a visa. The Philippines are now virtually an independent government. The American quota laws do not apply there, so that if you entered, you would enter with little or no requirements of immigrant's deposit for an unlimited stay and without restriction as to engaging in business.
And listen to this, Liebchen. The climate is semi-tropical. It's less difficult to get accustomed to than Cuba or Trinidad. Living costs are lower than the United States or Europe. Manila is quite a large city with cultural and social advantages. English is a second language. It's almost as common as Spanish.
Well, that would be helpful. But still, it's so far away from Muti and Papa Wolf. And it would mean a long, long ocean voyage.
I'm informed that in Manila, at least, there is a very respectable and decent Jewish population. because of the distance, you should not consider going there unless you feel that you wish to go with the idea of giving the place a fair and long trial as a place of permanent existence. Some of these decisions involve the question of your giving up your intentions of settling in the United States. There is something to be said for giving up this idea.
He says what?
Just listen. He's being very honest with us. He says they're in bad economic times.
There are 9 million unemployed. There is a certain disposition here to resent the presence of foreigners who are taking jobs away from good Americans. This country does not need immigrants as it once did, just as this is no longer the happy hunting ground of the Red Indian. And so it is no longer the land of opportunity that it was when our grandparents came over more than 20 or 30 years ago. So, my cousins, make your decisions and act accordingly. In any case, I suggest you pursue the Trinidad plan. Be assured that I am ready to give any required guarantee and deposit money, not in Germany, and provide you with passage if I can. You will oblige me if you refrain from describing yourselves as being under any obligations to me, since naturally I will do no more than I can and no less than one does.
My dear cousin, we send you our thanks without having come to a definite decision. You certainly have been told in the meantime that Trinidad has been closed to all Jewish immigration. I also should like to let you know that I am not ignorant which difficulties are waiting for us in the USA. I should not have the intention or the ambition to go to a big town. We should go to some small place or into the country and try, if it's possible, to earn our living together as a married couple. Marga as a domestic servant or a cook, myself as a chauffeur or a gardener. Believe me, I shall work and have not only the intention, but also the firm belief to succeed in one or the other way. I again fully thank you, and this time still more, for all your kindness and the active interest you take in our future. I only wish that I shall find in later days the opportunity to prove my deep gratitude. Yours very truthfully, Max.
Well, in February of 1939, the American consulate in Berlin notified us that our immigration numbers to be on the German waiting list came in. However, those numbers also indicated that we would be eligible to move to the United States. But that was not going to be until March of 1941, and conditions in Germany were getting worse every day. And with the threat of war, my parents were afraid they simply would not be able to survive. So for the first time, they seriously considered that far-off alternative, the Philippine Islands. Not their first choice, England was. But my father was afraid that Europe was going to be involved in the war very soon. And if that was the case, then England would not be a safe haven.
You certainly will understand that we prefer USA to Manila for a permanent abode.
On the one hand, America. On the other, months of seasickness and years of tropical diseases.
Yes.
What a choice!
But we should, of course, immigrate to Manila if you think it more suitable, and if we can find there in a shorter time and with less expense for yourself an existence. We sincerely thank you with all our heart, and we send you our love. Best regards to Cousin Jean.
Yes, at last.
Well, I haven't had a welcome like that in a long time. I guess the honeymoon isn't over.
Oh, with you, it's never over. Oh. What are you doing here?
I think I've done enough labor at the Labor Department for the morning. I came to take you to lunch. If you're available, that is.
Oh, with great delight. But can I take time to do something important first?
Something urgent at the National Archives, like a new old document?
Oh, even better than that. Our embattled German cousins have finally decided to go for it.
Go for what?
I'm sorry, that's a football term. I mean, the Grunwalds have decided to go to Manila.
Really?
At last, something we can make happen, and not at a ruinous cost to us.
Paul, I don't...
And they're willing to consider settling there permanently.
Now, wait a moment.
Now, Jean, we've talked about this.
Yes, we have, and I think we have some more talking to do.
Yes, but I need to...
You need to hear me out is what you need to do. I agreed with you that the Philippines would be a good temporary solution until things open up and we could get Max, Marga, and Suzanne here to the United States. But to move them halfway around the world and then dump them there permanently?
Jean, you're at the Department of Labor. I mean, I don't need to tell you how bad the economic situation is. We're in the 7th year of a severe depression, and there's no daylight in sight.
We've seen some economic indicators that things are turning around. The work projects, the relief programs.
I know all that, and we all knew there were no instant answers. But after more than 6 years, the public is tired of waiting for the good times to come back. And they're ready to blame anybody in sight, from President Roosevelt to Wall Street to immigrants, especially Jews.
It's not that bad, and you know my family have connections.
It is that bad. Your family's been above the battle lines. I was raised smack in the middle of it. Communities full of folks who pretend to be tolerant, but won't let Jews into their country clubs, and who among themselves aren't above discussing whether Hitler doesn't actually have a point. And those are the good people who condemn acts of public hatred, but don't make a peep as long as bigotry is expressed in quiet voices and cultured tones. You think that's going to change overnight? And Max and Marga are going to be greeted with open arms? Forget it. And I don't want to be the one who brings them here, only to learn that hate is a universal language.
And do you think it'll be different in the Philippines?
I don't know. I mean, it is a young and evolving society. Maybe it'll be better than here. Maybe not, but I'd like them to give it a try.
Why? Why are you so willing to settle for that as an answer?
Because I don't want to go hat in hand to your family asking for help in confirming their fears that you married beneath your station. Because it's the only answer for them that I can make happen. Because it's that, or live with the fear that Max and Marga and Suzanne will live and die in pain and fear. Because I couldn't find a way to save them.
God, I love you. Go, start the wheels turning. Lunch can wait. Our cousins can't.
It's from Paul.
Yes, what's it say?
Well, it's very short. It says, American High Commissioner to Philippines McNutt has certified you to State Department for entrance there. Suggest applied visa, American Consulate.
Well, it wasn't enough that my parents had to start packing for the Philippines. In Berlin, the relocation of Jewish families had begun at the same time. And with very little notice, my mother's parents, Hans and Rosa Zaleschin, were forced to leave their homes after 34 years. And they needed help with that. At the same time, we were ordered to leave our home. And the weight of all this was crushing, and it crushed any joy that we had of fleeing Germany. There was just so many questions and so many issues, and the ticking clock was not our friend. It was a constant reminder that time was going by too fast and necessary things were happening too slowly.
You didn't sleep well last night. I know you were crying.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were. I heard you.
Sorry if I kept you awake. It's just...
You didn't keep me awake. Everything else did. Suppose we can't book passage on a ship to the Philippines. Suppose the Nazis decide not to let us go.
Or suppose we do go and we never see my parents again? Suppose we cannot survive in the tropical climate? Suppose Suzanne gets sick and we can't find a good doctor? There are so many questions.
A wise man once told me that when uncertainty writes the questions, no one can write the answers.
And who said that?
My father, wisest man I know.
And what about Papa Wolf? What will we do about him?
What do you mean, do about what?
Well, there he is, all by himself in Stettin. And when we are on the other side of the world, who will look after him?
He sees your Aunt Ida frequently. It's not as if we get to Stettin to see him all that often.
Oh, that's exactly my point. We see him too seldom now. And when we are far away on the other side of the world, our parents, our homes, our friends.
They have taken our homes from us already. And our friends are doing better at getting out of this country than we are. Once we have made a life for ourselves, we can make a place for our parents where they can live without fear and persecution.
Fear. I live with fear. I sleep with fear. And I dream of fear.
Then look at our daughter. Look at Suzanne. She lives with hope. She sleeps with hope.
She's not yet 2 years old. She doesn't know fear yet.
Then let us live with the hope that she need never know fear. There's nothing better we can give her.
You're right. You're right. I will hope. I will hope for a boat for us, a good night's sleep for you, happy dreams for our daughter, and seasick remedy for me. Oh, how I hate ocean voyages.
We have only a general knowledge of what goes on in Europe, but we always fear the worst. War, for example.
We're not the only ones. Now the shipping lines won't accept Reichsmarks to book passage. Think that's not a sign war is on the way?
Exactly. That's why I think we need to do this. As to the matter of passage to the islands, if it would hasten your departure, we should be happy to arrange passage for you in American currency. Before we can do this, however, we must of course know at what date you can reasonably expect to sail, and whether it is necessary for you to adopt one route rather than another.
I'm betting it'll either be from Amsterdam or out of Marseille. Getting to England could be far too complicated.
Yeah, well, whatever they do, I hope they do it fast. That maniac Hitler is just trying to decide where to pounce. You know, and everyone else in Europe is closing their eyes and praying they're not next.
Wait, tell them we received the photographs. Tell them we regret we won't see them, but remind them of the Hebrew saying, next year in Jerusalem.
Who's writing this, you or me?
We are, and don't forget it.
Oh, good point. And I'm signing it that way so they'll know who's responsible.
You mean who to thank?
No, who to blame if they hate it in Manila. Oh! Is that a declaration of war?
No, just like Czechoslovakia. It's over without a shot being fired.
Oh, are you calling me a loser?
No, just bouncing a bad check.
It seems we cannot go out of country before July, because it is impossible to book our passages without our passports and our visas. On the other hand, we have a great lot to do with our preparation. In the meantime, we read in a book about Manila that July will be a good season for traveling because the big hot in the Philippines is earliest coming in February. And so, it will be easier for us to accustom to. We send you our love, Margaret.
Well, attempts to break through with bookings on a German shipping line failed. In spite of Paul's contacts with an expatriate German banker and self-described Aryan who offered himself as a reference. But then came the telegram in June of 1939. It had been sent to our old address and was in danger of never reaching us. And it was from the French steamship lines.
It was sent to the Pilkenstrasse address. It's a wonder it got to us at all.
Well, never mind that. It's here. Read it before I have a heart attack.
All right. Let's see. It says, we would report to you herewith that we have received the information from New York that the passage expenses were able to be paid for you for the Marseille to Manila trip in second class on the Aramis, departure on July 21st, 1939. We request your reply by return mail as to whether you will be ready to travel by this point in time and have your passport and visa affairs in order.
July 21st? My God, that gives us less than a month to get ready.
My darling, my love, we have been packed for weeks. In fact, we've never really unpacked since the Nazis forced us to move to this tenement. We can be ready in no time.
What about our sofa and the furniture and the china? We can't pack that.
Then we will have it shipped. Thanks to our cousins, well, your cousins, we will have enough funds left to afford the costs of shipping.
And how will we go?
I think we should take a train to Frankfurt, clear customs, and then take a train to Marseille. It's not a bad trip. I made it often when I was still in business.
I must tell Muti and Papa and Papa Wolf right away.
And I will go tomorrow to the steamship line on Unter den Linden and confirm our readiness to leave this hellhole.
And let us hope that the other side of hell is indeed heaven.
And I must write a letter immediately to the angels who have made this possible. Dear cousins, we have got with many thanks your cable, and have now been informed by the Berlin office of the ship line that the passage will be paid for us. Through your generous intervention, we are now capable of going on board of the Aramis at Marseille on July 21st. In an earlier letter, you told us to let you know our first stop and a bank to which you could send us some money. As we are going to board only with the allowed 10 Reichsmarks, and the ship line does not allow beforehand any Reichsmarks for the necessary extras, we have to accept your kind offer, and we beg you to send it to the Marseille office of the Messageries Maritime. There is still one important point to be considered. We can only insure our shipped goods and the big luggage we take with us in Reichsmarks. The insurance is getting worthless in the moment we pass the frontier. No damages would be paid in the cases of losses or injury. There is no other way than to ask you to insure our whole baggage. We are, till the last moment of our embarkment, petitioners. But we assure you of our intention of repaying, and if fate will favor us, these words certainly will not only be words.
Well, 2 government employees came to help my parents pack, but this was not a goodwill gesture. The Nazis wanted an account of everything that we owned, such as our linen, furniture, crystals, and photographs. Now, fortunately, my mother's engagement ring was smuggled out long before all of this, but she had no idea if she was ever going to get it back. And beyond the 10 Reichsmarks that we were allowed to take, anything else that we couldn't pack, we left for my mother's parents to help them survive until they could come join us. The 2 movers were kind and helpful as they packed the goods into what they referred to as Jewish caskets, and then took them off on their own journey halfway around the world. And after a tearful farewell at the Berlin train station, we said our goodbyes, and then we were off on our own journey to freedom.
That was tough, saying goodbye. Your papa even cried a little.
So did yours.
My father never cries.
Never? Not even when he put your mother in a nursing home?
Nope, stiff upper lip. That's him.
Well then, I'm glad he was wearing his hat to keep the raindrops off.
What raindrops?
Ones I saw falling down his face as he hugged you goodbye.
You know, for a minute there, I thought you were going to change your mind and refuse to go.
No, but I can't help but thinking I will never see Muti or Papa Wolf ever again.
Inside of a year, I will be the biggest feed and grain dealer in the Philippine Islands. We'll bring them over to join us. We'll have the biggest Seder in Manila's history.
And do you really think so?
I have to. It's what keeps me going, for us. For all of us.
Well, don't count your satyrs before they're cooked. We're not out of Germany yet.
Yeah.
We still have to make it through customs in Frankfurt.
I've been through customs in Frankfurt many times. It's just a formality. We're just going through the motions.
Well, going through the motions included a strip search of everyone. But I didn't mind. I was only 2, and I imagined my diapers needed to be changed anyway. But my mother, she found it humiliating and dangerous.
What is this?
Oh, I forgot I had that. It's nothing really. It's just a little heart my parents gave me. It's not valuable. I just keep it for sentimental reasons. To remember them by.
Here. Take it. Here. I wanted to tell you, you should take very good care of this. It's real gold, you know. You better hurry and put your clothes on. Your train for Marseille is about to leave.
We boarded the ship in Marseille 6 days before my 2nd birthday. And fortunately, I don't remember that one night we spent in the city. But my mother spent that night listening to rats scratching on the walls and smashing bed bugs from the mattress. Now, my father, being the adventurous person that he was, he went and explored the city that night. What he did, where he went, what he saw, I have no idea. And I don't think my mother ever did find out. But I know one thing. My mother was just so happy to be leaving Germany that the thought of an ocean voyage didn't seem that dreadful after all.
My dear cousins, we have until now a very agreeable voyage. We and Suzanne feel very well. The other children always play with Suzanne, and the grown-up passengers and employees, oh, they like the child, and therefore we don't feel at all the growing distance from our people at home. The voyage, of course, is very interesting for us. We are not at all homesick. We endeavor to forget Germany altogether.
Well, endeavoring to forget aboard the Aramis involved enjoying the French cuisine and having the attentions of a kind and helpful crew who really made a fuss over me. And my mother and father got all dressed up for the evening dances, and it must have seemed like the olden days in the social world of pre-Hitler Berlin. And while the ship's main purpose was to deliver ammunition to French Indochina, which we now know as Vietnam, we made stops in Stromboli, Italy, Port Said, Egypt, and Ethiopia, where my father made an historic purchase.
You actually bought those.
I did. Do you like them?
Why would you buy short pants?
I thought it was about time.
Time for what?
I've never owned shorts before, and we're going to the tropics.
They make you look like a little boy.
Like a little boy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Is that good or bad?
I don't know.
Huh.
I can't decide.
Hey, little girl, you want to play? Are you laughing at me, little girl?
Oh, not you. Just your knees.
Well, the Aramis continued on and made stops in Singapore, Sri Lanka, which was still called Ceylon then, and Saigon. where Max had to convince a rickshaw driver that he really did not want to go to the red light district. And we continued on, we cruised the Mekong River, and in Hong Kong, a young Chinese passenger from the ship became our tour guide. He showed us all around the sights, in spite of a raging cholera epidemic. And then he treated us to an 18-course meal in a hotel in Kowloon. It was truly a wonderful, magical time. And then we headed for Manila.
Paul and I have notified the Jewish Refugee Committee in Manila as to the day and time of your arrival, and you will undoubtedly receive a most cordial and helpful welcome to your new home. Please write and let us know how you like Manila and what your new address will be, as we will look forward to hearing about what you are.
This is strange.
Didn't they say we'd be met?
Yes,
And that they told them the date and time of our arrival?
that's what the letter said.
Well, perhaps the time is wrong. Are you sure you set your watch to the right time?
I have checked it against the clock on the ship. I checked it against the clock on the church steeple over there. And besides, even if it was just a little off, we've been waiting nearly 3 hours already.
So hot and sticky here. I can barely breathe.
The air smells like perfume, like bad perfume.
I am worried about Suzanne.
Why? She's sleeping. At least she's not complaining.
Well, at least that's why I'm worried. Who can sleep in this heat? It's not normal.
Don't borrow trouble. We have enough of that to go around.
Well, maybe we should ask for direction.
To where and how? I haven't heard anyone speak a language I can understand.
Excuse me, are you Rusted?
Yes, we just arrived here. The Jewish Refugee Committee was supposed to meet us here.
You are Jewish?
Yes.
I call Rabbi. You wait here, okay?
Okay.
Wait here.
Thank goodness, someone who can speak English.
Is that what that was? What did he say?
He said to wait here.
As if we had much choice, what with the luggage and the baby. And what exactly are we waiting for?
He said he is calling a rabbi.
I wonder, Orthodox or Reform?
Well, the rabbi of whichever denomination finally arrived and took us to a Chinese restaurant. And it was filthy, with dirty cups and saucers and plates, and used chopsticks. And there were animals wandering around the floor, that even though my mother was really hungry, she soon lost her appetite. Then the rabbi took us to a boarding house where we would stay for the time being. Now the house, if you could call it that, was up on stilts. Now just imagine this. It had only one large room and there were no partitions for privacy. The entrance and window had no door or screen, and there were chickens running around pecking for insects. That night, and for several more weeks, we slept under mosquito nets in the same room with other refugees, shuddering as we listened to the rats chasing around the room and getting into our clothes. Now, the Jewish committee, which was supposedly going to help us, just seemed annoyed at more refugees in their city. And my poor father came down with a tropical disease called dengue fever that lasted half a year. And I refused to eat and stopped gaining weight and growing. And my father, who continued to search for work unsuccessfully, and mother continued to suffer constantly with the unrelenting heat. Now, not a word of this reached our American cousins for a long, long time.
Your cable announcing your arrival in Manila arrived just too late for me to catch this week's airmail to the islands, which closes here on Tuesdays and delivers in Manila within 7 days.
Enough with the logistics already. If you were writing to Charles Lindbergh, you'd be telling him what route he should have taken across the Atlantic.
No. I'd tell him to grasp his left ear with his left hand and his right ear with his right hand and firmly pull his head out of his ass.
Paul, you don't usually talk like that.
No, but Lindbergh persists in praising Hitler. And in his case, to paraphrase Gilbert and Sullivan, I believe I may use any language I choose to indulge in without impropriety.
Well, I can't argue with that, but can't we just tell the Grunwalds how happy we are that their long journey has finally come to a successful end?
Yeah, that's a good point. We are very glad to hear that you have come through. Your first 2 letters after leaving Germany indicated that you were having a pleasant journey, and we hope that it continued so. Let us know how you are orienting yourselves and whenever you have any needs.
Well, let's see. How are we orienting ourselves these days?
We're certainly in the Orient, I'll say that much.
Won't take long to count our blessings, that's for sure.
Well, we're safely out of Germany, and we're together.
And that completes that list. Do you remember that first night? I thought you were going to give up and go back to Berlin.
Hell, I was homesick. Now I am hearsick.
Is there such a word?
If there isn't, there should be. Still, we really shouldn't complain after all Paul and Jean have done for us.
I'm afraid we owe them more than I will ever be able to repay. Getting a job here is impossible for a foreigner. Americans hire Americans, Filipinos hire Filipinos, and occasionally, just for variety, they hire each other.
I know, you'd think with all your business experience.
There are feed and grain companies here, and the best I've done is fill out an application. And if they're really nice, they'll wait till I'm out the door before they throw it in the wastebasket.
Paul told us there was a large Jewish community here.
And there certainly is. And those who have been here for a while are comfortably fixed and not about to share what they've got. Those who are new arrivals can only share their sympathy. They're off the same boat as us.
I think the expression is in the same boat as us.
In the same boat, on the same boat, off the same boat. If this is a boat, it's a lifeboat and it's sinking. I thought that by now...
I know.
It seems as if I have no more opportunities, no more chances here than I did under the Nazis. There it was because they knew who I was and they hated me for it. Here it's because I'm a foreigner and they hate me for it.
It's been so hard on you.
Hard on me? Well, what about you? The constant heat is wearing you down, that and worrying about our Susanna.
She refuses to eat enough to keep a bird alive, but still I know that...
We will go on, but please, will you do me one favor?
What's that?
Will you be the one to write to Paul and Jean? You're more gentle, more diplomatic than I am, and I'm afraid I might slip and tell them the truth. And that would be hurtful after all they have done.
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
Look at this, Paul. It's from Marga. She must have made it herself. It's absolutely beautiful.
There's a note. What's it say?
It's very short. Dear Cousin Jean, I beg you to accept my little needlework with the same love I made it for you. With my deepest gratitude, yours, Marga.
Not much news there.
They must be very busy, settling in, meeting new people, looking for work and a place to live.
Yeah, I'm glad. Sounds like this was the right choice after all.
Yes, and you're the one who made it happen.
Yeah, well,
you should be very proud.
Yes, but your uncle, I mean...
Never mind my relatives. I'm proud enough of you for both of us. You saved our cousins. You may have even saved their lives if a war starts.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the German-Polish situation. I suspect it won't be long before we know the worst.
You really think it might?
I think it's going to be bad no matter how it turns out. Whether it's another diplomatic victory for Hitler, or whether it's an all-out general war.
I've never said this before, but this time, I hope you are wrong.
So do I. For all of us, so do I.